Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be the DNT NVMD C200, and this optic is going to perform about 4 different roles. And through this review, I'm going to let you know everything I think about each one of these roles and whether or not this is going to be worth your hard-earned money. Guys, I'm Cam, this is CB Tactical, and we're going to jump right into this review. So guys, full disclaimer, DNT did send this optic out for me to review. Now, of course, there was no exchange of money or any exchange of favors or anything like that from DNT. They told me to be completely honest about my experience with it and just let them know that what I think of it. And that's what I'm doing here. So the DNT NVMD C200 is going to perform 4 different roles. One of those is going to be being used as a standalone optic. One of those is going to be able to be used as a magnifier. You're going to be able to use this as an action cam and a clip-on, of course. Now, what are some of the specs? This thing is going to be IP67 rated, and you also are going to be able to use an 18650 battery, which will grant you about 6 hours of runtime. You have a 1920 by 1080p mini OLED screen in here with a 50 hertz refresh rate. And then you also are going to have a 1920 by 1080p sensor, which is really, really cool for something like this, because if I'm being completely honest, this is very, very clear, especially at 1x, okay? So you have 2 different buttons here. You have your on and off button, of course, and you have this little function button. And what this does is it can be used to either record or start recording, or you can use this to change your viewing mode. So if you want to do full color, black and white, white phosphor, green phosphor, you just hold that down and it will change those for you. You also have this little dial here that you can use to manipulate the settings inside of the menu for this optic, which are extensive. So this thing can go up to 1:6 magnification. But if you want to change that to like a 1:3, if you're using this as a magnifier and you don't want to go up as high, that's fine. You can also keep this as a 1x. There's a lot of different options in there. You can also, of course, change your reticle. I have about 4 different options on mine. And then you can also change reticle color, things like that. So on the side of the optic, you also have a USB-C port, which is really cool, because if you want to take the footage that you've captured from this optic, you can just plug this right into your computer or your phone and extract it from there. So you can use the front ring here to change your focus, which is really good. Battery cap is right here, just unscrews, and it locks in pretty easily. Of course, when I took this out in the rain, I had no problems with my batteries or anything, any sort of water leakage inside of the optic, and it held up pretty well. So I am very happy with that. Also, the C200 is rated up to 50 BMG. So, like I said, this can be used for 4 different roles. It can be used as a standalone optic, a magnifier, a clip-on, and then an action cam. So starting off with the performance as a standalone optic, I think this is one of the most standout roles for this thing, mainly because you have a lot of different functionality with this device. Of course, you have the ability to use this in low light, which is absolutely amazing. And the first time that I did take this out, I put it on an MP5 and I ran it in conjunction with the IR light that they did send me as well. And when ran with the IR light, it performs incredibly well. Why would you need an IR light? Well, you're going to need an IR light if you're in areas that have very little natural light throwing through. One of those, an example of that is going to be a basement, like where I'm at right now. And then you also have being outside when there's no moonlight or any sort of lights around. You're going to need an IR device. Now, talking about this, it has 4 different settings that you have. You have full color, of course. You have black and white. You have white phosphor, and you have green phosphor. I'd strongly recommend when using this in low light conditions, don't run it in full color. It just isn't gonna work very well. It's honestly one of the biggest downsides of this is you can't use this in full color in low light environments. But things like white phosphor, green phosphor, and then of course black and white perform very well in those low light environments. Using this as a standalone optic performed very well. That's because of the refresh rate on this optic, of course. So you get about 50 hertz, and one of the biggest downsides of digital night vision, which this is going to be its refresh rate and latency. You do not get that nearly as bad in this optic. It's very good. And this, keep in mind, was my first experience using night vision. And when I did research, I did see that that latency was a big factor and a big thing holding back digital night vision. That was very much the case years ago. Today, we are not getting that nearly as much. This optic performs very well, especially when transitioning in between targets, very fast because of the latency. Is it analog night vision? No, it's not an analog night vision, but it performs very, very close. And especially when you consider the price of this optic, the performance is just unmatched in my opinion. It's really good when used as a standalone device. Now, when this is used in 1x, it's incredibly clear and very easy to see. The way that you're going to adjust the focus on your optic is going to be this front ring right here, and you're just going to change that to suit you and your eyes and what you see. This can go all the way up to a 6x magnification. And I got to be honest, when using this at 6x, it's not as clear as a regular optic would be. That is one of the cons of this, is when you do go up higher in magnification, it's not going to be as clear. Is it serviceable? Of course, I used it. So this is going to be one of the setups that I did run the NVMD C200 on. And this is how I tested it as being used as a magnifier. And I got to be completely honest, when using it as a magnifier, it's serviceable. If you want to use this as a 6x magnification, it's not as good just because it's not as clear. Now, when using it as a 3x, 4x, and even 5x, it is very clear, very easy to use. If you do want 6x out of this thing, it's just not going to perform as well. So my opinion is, if you want to get this as a magnifier, I would recommend that you just get a regular traditional magnifier instead. Like I said, perfectly serviceable. I would just prefer running a traditional magnifier as opposed to this. Now, of course, if you are using this in low light conditions, yeah, cool. It's going to be able to work for you. And it does work very well with an EOTech EXPS3. It was very cool to be able to use this thing for the first time in that sort of setup, right? But still, I just don't think it's as well served as a magnifier as it is a standalone optic. And then also too, when you do use it as a magnifier, when you flip it to the side, you can use it as an action cam. Now, if I'm being completely honest, I'm not a big fan of the action cam capability on here, mainly just because it's like this weird kind of like portrait mode, which I'm just not a big fan of. I'll throw some of that up on screen. It doesn't look as good. I just don't like it as much. Now, when it comes to the action cam and recording on this device, you are getting 32 gigabytes of internal storage, and you do have the option to import all of that video directly from the optic itself to your computer or your phone, or you can use DNT's app and you can just download that through the cloud. I like both. Personally, I just use the optic to get all my footage. So the NVMD C200 can also be used as a clip-on device for your optic. And for a little bit of time, I was running this behind my Vortex Razr Gen 2E. And this performed so well. I was very happy with it. And when you do turn on the clip-on mode for this, it's really cool, mainly because it just removes absolutely everything that you have that's on the screen. Now, when you're using it in magnifier mode or just the regular red dot mode or optic mode, you're not getting that. Here you are. So that's really cool. And especially if you do want to record, then you can, of course, do that as like a POV sort of camera. And all you got to do is just turn on that magnifier, or not the magnifier mode. All you got to do is turn on that clip-on mode and then run it behind your optic, and you can use it as an actual really good action cam, which is really cool, especially if you want to get yourself recording all those shots. So what are going to be some pros? What are going to be some cons of this optic? The main pro is it's going to give you that nighttime and low light capability to be able to go out and shoot. I do really like that. This was my first experience with night vision. I think it's really good. The latency on it is also really good. A very strong choice. If that's something you're worried about, this guy's going to serve you very well. Also, just the functionality that it has, because you can use this in 4 different setups, 3 of those are going to actually perform well. I do think this is a very good choice if you want something that can kind of serve multiple purposes. But this optic does shine as a standalone and then also as a clip-on. Magnifier, not so much. Action cam, not so much. But I do think this is going to serve you very well if you want that nighttime capability and you just want to be able to use this in many different conditions as a magnifier, standalone optic, clip-on, etc. Now, who do I think the NVMD C200 is going to be for? I do think that this is going to be for someone who enjoys hunting because you can use it as a clip-on. If you have a lot of land and you need to manage the wildlife on that land, this is going to serve you very well. I actually think this is made just for folks like that. Also, too, now it's cool that it can be used as a night vision device. I just don't think it's well served as a magnifier that you can only see under night vision, or that can only be used as night vision. So what are some of the cons of this? Well, one of those cons is going to be the fact that once you go up to 6 power, it's not going to be as clear, right? It's still serviceable, but not nearly as clear as something like this Vortex Razor Gen 2E, but that is something you're going to want to keep in mind. Also, its performance as an action cam, I just wouldn't recommend it for that. There's much cheaper options if you want to be able to record yourself shooting. And especially with the way they do that sort of portrait mode, I'm just not a big fan of it. Also, too, is going to be its ability to be used as a magnifier. I just think if you want to have some sort of magnification behind a red dot, there's much cheaper options out there. I'm just not a big fan of it. I wouldn't recommend it personally for that. But if you are someone who is going to be hunting, you want to be able to manage your land very well and the wildlife on that land, this optic is going to be very well suited for you. Ladies and gentlemen, that does it for the review of the DNT NVMD C200. I want to say thank you to DNT for sending this out to me. I want to say thank you to them too, because they were the first company to ever reach out, and that was really cool. Pretty big milestone for the channel, but nevertheless, I want to be completely impartial for this today, because that's honest, and you got to have integrity if you're reviewing stuff like this. You know, you guys are spending your hard-earned money on it. I want to wish you guys the best. God bless y'all. I'll see you in the next one. If you like what I had here for you today, like, subscribe, really appreciate it. If you have the NVMD C200, let me know what you think about it in the comments. I love y'all. I'll see you on the next one. God bless you. Bye-bye.